Heads up, Rebbetzin Bat-Chen Grossman coming at you to tell you that there is some strange, wonky technical issues with the audio in this podcast. And as much as we tried cleaning it up or trying to find how to fix it, we just haven't been able to. So instead of scrapping the whole thing and saying, oh, it's just not good, we've decided to be imperfect. Have some patience. It gets better. There's parts that aren't good, and then there are parts that are. So if you hear it and you get a little annoyed, just skip ahead and it should be getting better. Thank you for your patience. We apologize for being imperfect, but we're also really proud of ourselves for being real and for showing up even when it's not fully exactly as it should be. This episode was just so powerful that I couldn't just get rid of it. I really appreciate you and your patience with us. So thank you and enjoy. Let's go. And we are live. Welcome everyone to the Connected for Real podcast. I'm Rebbetzin Bat-Chen Grossman, and today with me is Chayelle Rose. And before I let her introduce herself, I'm just going to give you a little heads up. We are in the tail end of receiving. So we had receiving in God, receiving in marriage, receiving in business. And this week we are talking about receiving and you. So Chayelle Rose, introduce yourself and then we'll get right into it.
So, my name is Chayelle Rose. I am a 3 principles coach who works with mums to find more peace and joy. I live in Nachlaot in Yerushalayim, and I give 5 stars to anyone who actually knows where that is. It's a little bit off the beaten track. And it's basically in between the Shuk and Rachavia. Those 2 places people know. We moved here from Rachavia about 6 years ago, and it took me a while to become integrated with this place and to really enjoy living here. And now I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. It's just gorgeous. Like you don't feel like you're in the city. You're surrounded by all types of Jews, all types of people, young, old. Like my kids have all these characters in their life. And it's just, I really enjoy it. And it's really nice to live here. And I really appreciate where Hashem sent me because I definitely didn't choose to come here.
That's amazing. Where'd you come from before that? Where are you originally from?
So I grew up in London. I knew as a child I wasn't going to live in London. I had no idea where else I was going to live because the only other place I'd been to was Switzerland, and I wasn't going to live in a chalet on a mountain. So, I'd been to like different places in Europe too at a certain point. I hadn't been to Israel until I was 17 years old when I went to seminary, which is rare for a British person, or rare-ish. And we had this amazing teacher in seminary that besides for doing the usual brainwashing, she allowed us to, not even allowed us, created a space. There was nothing else to do in that lesson. It was probably on a Sunday or a Monday, to just talk about our experiences over the weekends. Even if you didn't have a fun Shabbos experience, you heard someone else's. It was really clever. And so we got to know all parts of Israel, all parts of Jews in Israel, and the mentality and the culture. And they would teach us a lot about the mentality and the culture so that we weren't just being like, oh, these rude, horrible, strange people who talk in loud voices. It was just like understanding what makes them tick, understanding what makes them behave a certain way, understanding and seeing it through completely different eyes. And I literally fell in love with the culture, which I think is super important because people have a lot of different pieces of why they want to come and live in Israel. And then they can't make amends with the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're bringing up their kids in something that they're like living in friction with.
Right.
And it's very jarring.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
It's so beautiful that you're saying that. And I think that your seminary did such a good job by having everyone discuss it in a group setting. Such an interesting thing, really. Yeah, I have so many friends who say they would come to Israel if not for the people who live in Israel.
Yeah.
And personally, most of my family is Israelis, so I find that a little offensive because I think they're all nice people. But I get what they're
Because you
saying.
have the eyes for it.
Right, exactly. But I
Yeah.
get what they're saying from their perspective. It's just jarring when you don't know anything else.
Hmm.
And then when you judge it a certain way. So I love that they were able to help you navigate that shift. And
Yeah, and
that's
I think
really,
I'm lucky in the sense that once I understand where something comes from, it's anyway much more closer to how I like to be in the world. Like I like things straight in my face. I prefer someone tell me like the straight, honest truth up to my face, and then I can, talk back about it. Than like all these. I can't even remember how I used to live, but in England, so you might not know this. Like, give an example, right? So when my kids started first having play dates, they would say, "Okay, I want to go to so and so's house," and I would say, "Well, you can't call them. They didn't invite you." And they were like, "Why can't we ask them if we can go to their house?" Why? Because I didn't know this until I went to actually parenting classes in Israel with Rebbetzin Bat-Chen, and she's like, "People in Israel say no." Huh? Oh, if they need to say no, they say no. So you can totally invite yourself to someone's house because if it isn't good, they'll say no. But when I would talk to my sisters who were raising their kids in London, there's no such thing as inviting yourself to somebody's house. And they reminded me of how I had thought to raise my kids.
yeah. That's so beautiful. And I think it's also, it makes me crazy when my husband says something in a way that's not direct. And then I just like ignore it and move on. And he's like, I was being British about it. Go do it or something. And I'm like,
How dare
really?
you?
Do British people really not say what they mean to say? Like, is
Yeah.
that the thing? So I'm happy you said no because I'm like, I don't know. How do you live like that? How do you just like hint and wait for someone to like pick up on a hint?
There's a
It's
lot of like undercurrent and I'm so out of it now that if my kids ever marry someone from England, I will have to inform my future mechotonim. I am no longer British. If I say something that sounds rude to you, it's just because I can't remember how. Like
right.
I am. I'm not trying to be rude.
Yeah, no, and I think
you know.
when I teach boundaries and when I teach women how to ask, part of the lesson is that you have to trust that just like you are an adult, the
Yeah.
other person is an adult too. And if you're going to say, hey, can you this, that, the other, they're allowed to say no. And that just means they're communicating. It doesn't mean they're being mean. It doesn't mean they don't love you. It doesn't mean they don't care. But when somebody comes from a home where it's not like that, you can't be direct or you can't say no, then wait, what do I do now? Like, where's the permission to ask if you think you're forcing?
Yeah. And
Just like
so
before we went live, right? And you're like, how could you do that to them? I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just allowing it. I'm helping that. We had this really fun conversation before where it was as if you're assuming I am making someone do something, where in reality, I am here to serve and I'm helping them come to a decision. It's like, poof, a completely different approach to the same exact thing.
yeah, I've always had this dream of wondering if you can somehow. I don't think it works, but like just change a culture a little bit in that way. Like invite a culture to start being more honest because it's just so much easier and everything looks simpler that way, you know? And like you're saying, like, in family relationships and business relationships, in all relationships, if you can ask, you can answer. If you can't, then just like, I think early on, like in marriage, I learned this that you have to train each other to be able to say no. Because then you can ask, and you have to be able to trust each other when there's a no, and you can then communicate without all this angst and all this like worry and wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my intimacy masterclass, I talk about this that your no's should be no's, but you're also allowed to say, I don't know. I'm not ready. I'm not sure. Like there are so many in between yes and no where you can communicate where you're at without giving a definitive answer so that the other person knows if there's what to do about it or if there's nothing to do about it, right? I was once in a business course where the lady said she was on a Facebook group and one of the men wrote no means, and all the women responded no means no, and all the men responded no means try again. And she thought it was like a sales, group for whatever, like a bunch of salespeople. And she was like, why do the men hear no and think, oh, okay, so I'll just try again. Oh, so I'll just push a little more. Oh, okay, so I just need to, give her more options or whatever it is. And for the women, it was like, I don't know, no just has one option. Like no means no. And once she was able to see the thread of, oh, all the men said this and all the women said this, and she was able to bring it back to everyone and say, do you guys realize that when we say the same thing, we're meaning different things? So we have to really communicate. And we also have to take responsibility for what we meant. So if I say no to someone who's trying to sell me something, they're like, oh, no means that not now. No means that whatever, no means that you don't understand it well enough. I'm going to try to sell it harder. If I'm not clear on no means no, then I'm giving them the permission to go ahead and try to sell it, right? And so it's really up to me also to take responsibility for my no's.
Could you say that last bit again? It's up to you to take
To take responsibility,
responsibility.
to hold your
What way?
no's, to hold your no. If you're putting down a boundary and someone says, "Oh, I know from all my other experiences that boundaries are just like warning signs. They're not really red lines." So I'm just going to walk over this and see what happens because I know I'm safe. I know from experience, right? This person lived with all the people who didn't hold boundaries. Your job is to hold your boundary and say, no, no, but this person with this boundary means no. And they're like, no, but that's not what my life has shown me. Like, you can have two people who have a very different relationship with the word no. And so you can't blame them for being, oh, you have a bad, I don't know, you were around the wrong people. You don't understand how to live, or you don't understand what no means. You're being rude. You're right. Like you were
Mm-hmm.
saying, if you come
You're
into a
just
culture and
stereotyping.
say, right, if you come to a culture and say you're wrong, what you're doing is you're not owning your part of your culture. And it's fine that in your culture, no means everything else but no. But
Mm-hmm.
I want to say no, so I'm going to hold my no. It's not their responsibility to respect my no the way I want it respected. It's my responsibility to hold my no to the way that I want to hold it. Was that
Mm-hmm.
clear?
Yeah, it's very cool. And how that intersects in a culture is very interesting because, I talked about like being an Israeli, so to speak, to within a British culture, even though I'm not there currently, but like how I would be. But to the Israelis, I'm the British one.
Right.
So however Israeli I think I am, they're going to treat me differently. And so then it comes to, you can look at it like that, and then you can look at it as just people, because we so often like put things in boxes, and sometimes there's so many boxes that you just see, forget British, forget Israeli, we're all just people, and we're all going to have a different understanding of no, all going to have a different understanding of how to navigate, how to negotiate, how to get something done that we want. If I would bring this back to like what the topic we want to talk about receiving, because on your questionnaire you wrote something about how does this factor into marriage, and the only thing that I could think of was resentment. And I think it comes in here a lot because if we go away from the no's for a second, if we go to receiving in terms of getting stuff, not getting no's, getting yeses, hopefully, but like, let's say in the context of getting help, getting time off, you know, I want to go for a rest. I want to just have a break. I'm tired. I'm this, whatever it is, right? We just came from the Pesach break. And I always found breaks to be like, I always used to find them extremely difficult to negotiate time and time off and how to just, and so I feel like we have this myth sometimes that you carry on until you can't anymore. And when I can't anymore, then I'm finally in a position to receive. But then yeah.
Can you, oh my gosh. Okay. Could you say that again? I am going to go and go and go and go and go until I'm like dead. And then, like, okay, fine. Now I can receive help. I think of examples like being sick, right? Like people only receive help when they're finally like almost dead, so sick that they can't run the kitchen. And then it's like, fine, you can make me a meal. But they won't receive the help when they're just needing it or wanting it, even if they would love it. Like, wouldn't it be fun if somebody just made you a meal for no reason?
Here's where I confess. I don't care about food. I wish I did. I like food. I'm better than when I was like, growing up. Growing up, I didn't like food, but I like food now. I just don't care about it. So there's certain foods in our house that only my husband will prepare because he cares about food.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's the point in someone not caring about food, throwing it in the oven and ruining it? Although I can make nice meals, I do make nice meals. Like I come from a completely different angle when I make food. It comes from like wanting to nourish my family, but not, ooh, that tastes delicious. Sometimes, not never. But it's not like food driven. So it's so interesting when you say that, because me personally, when you use that example, wouldn't it be so nice? For me, that's natural in this area. And I wonder if everybody has an area, if they really thought about it, and I'm not saying it needs to be this way, but what if everyone has an area in their life where it's more natural for them to receive? So for example, silly things like if my husband's preparing like some avocado, I'd be like, "Ooh, sure, make me some," like as a standard, right? And it's so easy for me to say that because like why wouldn't he? you know
Right.
like you are the good food maker of the house. He doesn't have so much time to do it, but when he's doing it,
Right. It doesn't cost him any more time or energy to make an
and
extra.
even if it does, I'm totally fine with it. Totally good usage of his time and energy. That's what I'm saying. So natural for me. And sometimes when you see that you have a skill in a certain area, like it makes sense to you. Now, how about we transfer that to someone where it feels more unnatural? Like maybe he enjoys it less, right? Maybe he enjoys this thing less, but doesn't mean you need it less of him.
Can
And
you think
it's
of an example?
sorry.
Since you gave the example of him giving you food and making food for you, and it's easy for you to receive because he just does it better and you don't care as much. Can you think of an example where it's harder for you to receive?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
So an example of that would be more the classic, like, can you look after the kids now? Right? And because that's typically like, because I started out with thinking like what kind of things would have come up when we had vacations. So that's kind of, I think now it could be other people would have the complete opposite examples, right? Or something completely else. But it was less natural for me to do it. And so for years, I would wait until I absolutely needed it. I couldn't understand the warning signs in my body, and forget the warning signs. Even before you get warning signs, it's just normal for a person to want to have 20 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, who knows, of time allotted to when they can breathe by themselves on a vacation, let's say 2 to 4 week period. Like, why wouldn't that be normal to us to plan that out?
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't that be? And so when you're not willing, or because I think sometimes it takes guts to say, you may even have to take time off learning during this vacation period. You may even have to take time off your leisure period. You may even have to, whatever it is. Yes, there's a,
You
what's
know,
the
I'm
word?
getting an example of my life.
Yeah.
I had a very hard time praying consistently every single day. That was like the thing for me that I tried since high school. Tried to do daily, and then I'd fall off, good for a while, and fall off, and on and off, and on and off, and for years, years, years. And because I was the daughter of a rabbi, and my father always told me, like, women who have children and have a different schedule are not obligated. So don't be so hard on yourself. So I'd be like, yeah, but I want it, but it's not working out. Okay, so I'll just say this. So I'll just do that. And I was like sort of grabbing at little bits here and there until I was finally pregnant with my number 6. So we're talking a lot of years. Okay. I finally decided that that's it. I'm done. I'm sick of it. I need to own my space. I just committed to allowing myself to receive that alone every day. And that's when I was able to break through. Like, that is the beginning of my entire journey. Is
How interesting. How
that.
interesting that's the package it came in, the alone time.
And you know what? I think fine. It makes sense for me to let my husband go an hour to pray and study and then come back home and continue our day. He goes again, away for prayer and study, and then he comes back. And even on vacations, he has these times, and they make sense. No problem with them, except I don't let myself have that, okay, now I need a 20-minute break so I could stand in prayer and not be pulled by my skirt. Yeah, like,
You want to know something really cute?
yeah,
You know who Rebbetzin Bat-Chen is?
no.
She's probably in her 90s, and she is the daughter of Reb Chaim Pinchas Scheinberg. And she's got the most wicked sense of humor. She's just hilarious. She says the funniest things. And I once actually picked her up in a car. This is not intending to say this, but it's too good. I picked her up in a car with my friend who was driving, and we were picking her up to go to a speech. And we'd had the time wrong, so she wasn't ready, and she put her wig on and, like, in the back room, whatever. And she came out, she's fussing with it, and she said, "Why won't it ever do what I want it to do?" I said, "What do you want it to do?" She goes, "I don't know, flatter me." like, like 80-year-old woman. And so she told us that on Friday night, her mother taught all week. Her mother was a teacher, and her mother would go to bed after she lit the candles. Can you imagine? She didn't sit there praying and saying Tehillim. She went to bed. And her father, Reb Chaim Pinchas Scheinberg, who was, a worldwide consulted big, big rabbi, would come home from prayer, and the kids were not allowed to wake their mother up. And she said, we were starving because all Friday my mother cooked. And if we wanted something to eat, she would say, "Take a banana." And so all we had to eat was bananas. And so we were starving. And she said we would be so naughty. We would go into the bathroom. We would make as much noise as we could to try and get her to it. But he would not let us go in and wake her up. Not just that, he would serve the meal.
Wow.
Like we could take some permission from
her. When she did wake up, and even while she's at the meal, he would serve the meal.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't have, like, handwritten notes if he did it every week or if like maybe it was sometime. I have no idea. I just know this is something he did, and people know this. And for good reason. And I know I went through a long, many years of, just because of who I was and silly ideas I picked up, I did need to bring out that mothering, nurturing, wanting to do those things for my family. If it just becomes I don't want to do this, let's just split. That's not what I'm talking about. But this is how I really boil it down. So at some point when you become a mom, at some point you discover this term self-care. Thank goodness teenagers don't have it yet, I think. And,
no, teenagers have it. It's really beautiful. Really beautiful. My daughters, I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of them. I have a daughter who comes home, she's
Yeah.
excited, and she'll, she jumps right in to help because this is like the hardest hours are from to 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, she's just like, I need to go into my room. And she puts her in bed and just reads a book. I don't know how long. And then she comes and like, okay, I'm ready.
So
It's
sweet.
cute.
Oh my goodness, that's not what I would describe as teenage self-care, but yes, wow. Wow. Okay. So I discovered this word self-care, okay? And I took it to places. And one day a friend came to visit me. Now I was living in a very old Israeli apartment, very old. Like imagine an old one, and now imagine an even older one. And the floor was like not nice. Again, imagine a not nice floor, and then imagine an even more not nice floor. And it was broken, and it was uneven, and it was old, and it was dirty, and you couldn't do much to make it look decent. But there was a difference when it was clean and when it was dirty. And I think it started my obsession that I'm not a neat freak and I'm not a tidiness freak at all. But I really like clean floors. If nothing else was tidy, I like the floor to be clean. And so one day a friend comes to visit me and I said, I just did self-care. I came home and instead of doing this and instead of doing that and instead of doing the other, I cleaned my floor. And now I feel amazing. I just really wanted that floor clean. And she looked at me and she said, no, 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 that's not called self-care. And she quoted me from the Bible of self-care, what self-care really is. And I said, thank you very much. Goodbye. And I showed it to the door. No, maybe not, maybe not. But I did not care that she said that. I understood the point she was making, that cleaning the floor is not a manicure. But you cannot quantify what a manicure does for someone and what a clean floor does for someone. And that's the moment where I took that phrase and threw it in the bin. And I replaced it with a new phrase over the years, and it's called, very, very impactful phrase, be a normal person. Because if you feel you have to follow this criteria of someone's or that criteria of someone's or this definition, you are not receiving. You are not receiving the wisdom within you to know what you need right now.
Love that. I love that. By the way, that this week, I started my week after it took out this, the floor cookie. We had a great shop. Everything was wonderful. The kids were very active, and I could not stand it. And it's so that you talked about your floor, but I went crazy lady rage. I cleaned the floor like I don't clean often, and we cleaned it just like it wasn't dirty before, but it was so dirty, and I couldn't feel. I was like, but we cleaned it today. What's your problem? I was like, and I made a huge thing of cleaning solution, and I spilled it all over, and I'm scratching, and I took a knife and I scratched all the sticky stuff, and I'm like going at it. And when I was sweeping it out the door, my husband came and saw black water. It was like gross water, and he's like, how'd you get so much dirt? Like, it was washed on Friday. I'm like, no, it wasn't washed like this. And I totally resonate with what you said. It feels so good. This is it. It's when you take responsibility over your sanity. This is bothering me, and it's important enough for me to stop everything and take care of it now.
Mm. And at the end of the day, when you narrow life down into, again, boxes, and you think that, all right, these kind of activities are called work. These kind of activities are called leisure. These kind of activities are called, again, you are so limiting yourself from experiencing the broadness and the depth of life. So could be you could have a vacation period where you haven't even thought of having time by yourself because the dynamics of your house are such that just naturally get to be in your room sometimes by yourself and you didn't even feel or experience a deficiency in any area. Or it just doesn't even come on a register on your mind, such a thing. And then you hear somebody else say something, and this has for sure happened to me, where you hear somebody say something and they are resentful about something, and all of a sudden it creeps into your mind like, huh, I don't get that. And it
Right.
trips you up into thinking again that this experience means this.
I love saying that. I just had a client tell me that she does so much self-care. She feels lazy and guilty for doing all the self-care. Worst thing is, the care she's doing, she still feels empty.
Yeah.
I said to her, because not actually doing the self-care you need that fills you up, doing self-care, but like all the things you think you should do, and so you're doing them. If it's not filling you up, it's not the self-care you need.
No.
I really appreciate that you say there's this real openness that happens, willing to receive the messages from God, from within, from knowing what you really need right now. And the more you lean into that, the more fulfilled you'll be, because you'll be filling the thing that you need to be filling, as opposed to just doing things you're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how guided we are when we slow down enough to experience what it feels like. Like, I give an example. So there are times when a person can really feel like a certain thing would be good for them. Okay, so anything. So I'll just throw in examples, right? So they feel like, oh, there's this retreat coming up, and I really want to go on this retreat, and blah blah blah. Okay, or just I want to take off a day off work for myself, or there's this store I've been meaning to go for a long time, and I just don't seem to get to go, and I just want to make the time for myself and go there, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
right? These are very self-focused, me-focused activities. And then what happens next is it doesn't seem to be happening. Like they are, it's not that for lack of trying, but things seem to be coming up in their lives, and it doesn't seem to be a good day. Now, here's the interesting thing. How do I then approach it? Because if I start believing that I must get this thing to be happy, I must need this thing, I then go on this chasing journey. And there's so many types of chasing journeys. This is just one example. But as soon as I can get in touch with the fact that I am chasing, there's my sign that I'm going down the path, and I veered off the path slightly,
Mm.
because you're not going to get anything from chasing. You're either following your wisdom, you're either following that internal guidance that's giving you a little nudge to do something, but not because therefore I will be happy, because therefore I will be satiated. It doesn't work like that. It's because it's a good idea to do it. But if it didn't yet become a good idea to do it, and it's just something on the horizon, and you're playing with it and you're trying, stay there, stay playing, stay with it on the horizon. Because once you start chasing, you've left your wisdom, you've left that good feeling that you may never even need it. You may not even be able to get it some of the time. And it's a constant journey of exploring and wondering and working out and being open to change. And it's a very, very all like non-concrete, non-specific things, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. The moment you make it too concrete, yeah, it's not going to fill you up anymore.
But do you feel like there is a procrastination that's happening when something you want isn't happening because you just don't believe you deserve it or you're not worthy of it?
Yeah, but I'm not describing that type of experience.
Okay, so tell me again what you're talking about that's different.
I'm talking about, okay, so if I would talk about it in terms of my own life, just because it's the only life I know intimately, and so I'm going to assume that many people are like this, but not everybody. There was a learning curve, like I already explained about. I discovered the word self-care. And So there's a learning curve to get in touch with, those things are coming on my horizon. I'm gonna hold onto them and see if I can make that happen and deal with those feelings, as you said, that come up and say, well, why should I? And well, we have a million reasons why not. Really good. And it's always going to be in line with what you believe. Very tricky. And then you see your mood keeps going down, and then you start getting resentful and you start taking it out on other people. Usually there's one main adult in your house that you seem to be taking it out on. They're just conveniently there, you know? And there's your sign. Uh-huh. I need to be taking responsibility for those things that come up in me. Why? Because I'm the only one that intimately knows myself. As much as we would love our husbands to just sort it all out for us because, he could make me an avocado. Why can't he also tell me what my dreams are? He can't.
Yeah.
And so there is that stage for most people where you see that you need to take control of your life. So I'm talking before I was talking really once you're past that stage, right? You're in that stage where you're ready to put things on the map and decide that, again, be a normal person. If I would tell my husband happily to, like, my husband's a biker, go on a bike ride. You need a tap, right? Like, go on a bike ride. It's good for you. Like, I happily, go do it. Why would I not treat myself like that? Why am I not a normal person? Be a normal person.
Right.
It becomes so simple. But again, not in a chasing way, because you can go in the complete extreme opposite direction where now I need to get nice coffee every day, and I need jewelry, and I need a new wig. Should I stop?
Wow, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. And I'm thinking, why aren't we normal people? Like, what is, because I love, by the way, you guys should know, Chayelle has this great course called Bedtime Made Easy, which is where I found her. And I think she's so awesome. And I fell in love with her, the way that she explained it and the way that she made it that easy. And because you come from the parenting world and I come from the marriage world, we're working with the woman, right? We're working with the mom, with the person who is the female head of the household, and this character who is so nurturing and so loving. And the reason why it's so hard for her to get out of the roles where she is mother and wife is because she appreciates those roles very much and she loves them and she prioritizes them and she doesn't want to take away from them. So there's this thought that if you do something for yourself, it takes away from someone else, as opposed to the opposite, which is true, right? When my daughter told me when she was 15, she turned 15, and I asked her for a blessing for her birthday, because on your birthday you have bless. So I said, "Give me a blessing," and she said, "I bless you that you take a nap every day." And I turned pink and purple and whatever. Like I blushed. I was like, no, that's impossible. That would be so embarrassing. What are people going to think? And she said, Ima, you don't understand. When you take naps, you are an amazing mother and you have patience for us and everything feels so good. And when you didn't take a nap and you're just sort of like, I need to do this and I need to do that. And then like you end up filling the roles that you need to fill 24/7, we feel it. And it really, really does not serve us as a family when you're overtired, when you're not at your best. Like, it is not an embarrassment to nap every day. If anything, you could be really, really proud of taking care of yourself and your family when you go. So she gave me this speech, which was I love to this day for, because the last 3.5 years, I've been napping every single day, almost consistently. And she gave me the permission to do that. She reflected to me that it's not taking away from, it's actually the opposite, it's giving. So why is it so hard for us to be normal people when we are running these lives and growing these beautiful families and businesses and just here doing God's will? Why is it so hard for us to be normal people?
You're asking me.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I even, if you're listening and you're watching, please let us know what you think.
Okay, so my personal theory, which I forgot about until the second, my
I
personal
love you.
theory, which I'm dredging up from the past, because it is something I spent many hours thinking about, is that okay? So I remember as teenagers a few different conversations we had, which is phenomenal for me to remember stuff from teenager. Well done. I remember us having these kind of teenage discussions where we knew everything about the world, right? And so we get to also complain with everything about what's wrong with the world and the systems that we're living in. And so one of the things I remember us talking about was the schools don't really teach us how to become mothers. And as a mother, I realized, oh, you can't learn in school how to become a mother because it's the wrong setting. Like it just can't. Forget it. And then I thought, okay, is there any way to learn? And then I realized, you kind of have to learn in the home a bit. That's the setting to have to learn some of the skills, right? For example, your 15-year-old, wow, like how amazingly mature and in tune of her to say that. And by the way, I think that's another Israeli thing. I don't think British people will talk to their mothers like that. It's really interesting. And like we have these, yeah, it's different. And so in that kind of setting, she can see what it takes to become a mother. She can also help you and get the skills in helping. But what so often happens in the way just like modern life is created, and also just for some reason, the way we approach teenagers is we handle them with so much care that they're so fragile that, like, heaven forbid, like, to ask them to do something. So many people grow up, get married with zero skills in any kind of motherhood related area. So they get thrown in a deep end, and then they have to learn, and it's really hard. Now my mother was amazing. I was the youngest in my family, so I just naturally didn't have to do that much. I laid the table, I emptied the dishwasher, I cleaned the sinks. Probably not much else because I was useless and a bookworm. So I read.
What you just said is like my most helpful one is she empties the dishwasher and she fills it and she
Okay,
cleans
good.
up. It's like, and she's a bookworm. So yeah.
So the final piece is you get thrown in at the deep end, and you have to go from 0 to 100. You have to look after a home, you have to look after a husband, you have to cook the meals, and hopefully you want to on some level because you think it's a good thing to do. It doesn't mean you're going to like it, and it doesn't mean you're going to be good at it, and it doesn't mean you're going to have not going to have tremendous struggles, because this is totally new, and anything new you're going to have tremendous struggles with, on every level. And okay, so you get to grips with that, and you go from 0 to 100 of being totally devoted to first a husband and then hopefully a baby. And I had no idea how to take care of myself and a baby. No idea. So I did my best to take after my baby, to take care of him. I really didn't take care of myself. Didn't eat properly, didn't sleep properly. I didn't make sure to get, like to socialize, even though, I love socializing, but I didn't prioritize it. I just didn't know how. I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the understanding of how important it was, and also I probably didn't need it half the time. You're learning to live with a new person. You're still learning even when you have a baby, and you're enjoying that. Fine. So, you're seesawing the whole time. You go from selfish to, for lack of a better word, selfish to completely devoted, and then you got to swing back to somewhere in the middle. So to me, that's why.
Yeah.
What do I know?
No, I love that we have a listener who gave a whole explanation. She says, as you said, since we're so much in the role of nurturing others, even Rebbetzin Bat-Chen only allowed herself once her daughter gave her permission and explained how it's better for her and those she nurtures. So I love that you picked up on that I'm also human. and that I'm not, I wasn't born able to give everybody advice about what to do just because I know. It's because I had to experience it and learn to receive and learn to let myself be human and, be a person, which I love you say, because like it makes it so normal. If you want to do something, then do it. And if you are not sure how to do it right now, figure out when you can do it. And one of my guests said that when you have a baby, you're actually in masculine energy because you're giving and you turn into a giver. And so it's really interesting that you're most feminine when you're receiving, and the roles that we see as feminine actually take you away from your superpower, which is receiving. And it's your responsibility to, like you said, swing back into that feminine, even within those masculine roles in your life. And so this is really interesting. You just reminded me of it when you were speaking. Like, I'm taking care of a newborn baby, therefore, I am 100% a giver. And that's the male superpower, right? Like, it's, ah, my daughter said something. I just remembered. Okay, same daughter. Now she's 18 and a half and she's studying full time, and she's also serving in the Israeli education system. And she said something beautiful that has to do with this. And I'm trying to remember what the actual concept that she was explaining was. But basically, she says, why is the advice to men to give? Like, you need to give to your wife, you need to give to, whatever, the world, is because their automatic is to think of themselves. And so giving will take them out of their automatic. And women, their automatic is to give. And so they have to learn to receive. Now, when you can tap into that, then you're in alignment, because receiving is the actual feminine superpower and giving is the masculine superpower. So even though it comes easier for the other one, when you tap into it, you open up massive openings of abundance. It's just everything starts to flow.
Yeah.
And now now I feel like I have to call her and be like, what was that thing? Like, what's
it's the missing piece.
Yeah.
But I love what you said, because it's so symbiotic. We're all here to join together cohesively and become a unit. And the closer we come to Mashiach's times, the more these things become more and more apparent, the more they become available in the world and as part of common culture as well. And so it's so symbiotic, it's so flowing into the other one, that I'm helping you with what you're not good at, you're helping me with what I'm not good at, and then we're both getting what we need.
Right.
Not from a place of resentment, from a place and desperation, but from a place of, I'm receiving the wisdom to know that this is what's necessary. And now my job is to step up, confront, and face that. And perhaps push through a comfort zone.
Right.
Not hard. Once you see that that's what it is, all I need to do is push through that comfort zone slightly. Wow, we're all much happier for it.
Right.
Everyone.
Yeah. And notice that a lot of what's stopping us from receiving is our thoughts about it. It's, what are people going to say? What am I going to look like to others? It's like, I'm going to seem a certain way, or I'm going to be judged for it. It's really not about the thing itself, right? Like, this is what you want. It's not a question. It's really just getting over the noise.
And it takes just a moment of slowing down and just ignoring all that and letting it out of your head. And then you're left with just simple, basic, what do I want? What do I need? Like, what's next?
So what is next? Let's wrap it up for the listeners who are, we went a lot of different directions, and we're just, this is so fun, because I'm just like, I love talking to you.
Same.
How can we practically, the listener is sitting here going, wow, this was so fun to listen to, but like, how do I receive more in my life? How do I lean into receiving in a way that I can fill myself up and create space for others to be around me and really open up that wealth of space, connection?
So you've got to be very trusting of what's coming through you, not what's coming through someone else. And with very, very used to hearing this thing from that person and this thing from that person, I should do it like her and I should do it like that. There is no one path. I told you I was listening to your podcast last night with Hannah Mason, right? And it was so interesting how you resisted something she had said to you years ago, and now she was coming around. She
Right.
needed to be where she needed to be on her journey at that point.
Right.
There's no contradiction there. She was where she needed to be. You were where you needed to be. Happened to be she came back to you, and she was your teacher at that point. And you trusted yourself. And then it was funny because within the same conversation, she said something, and I thought to myself, I hear her point. I'm still where she used to be, and that's where I want to be. That's where I'm
Mm-hmm.
currently exploring. That's where I'm up to. And that's great because I'm not on her path. It's not like we're not trying to be like each other. We're
Right.
trying to be like who we are right now and to get closer and closer to the truth of who we are, because that gets covered over, as you said, with all these thoughts.
Mm.
And so the first step is to know it comes through you. I never used to know that. It comes through you. You are given wisdom. You are given the power to know what's next. I can't tell you. Every coach will understand this because a big part of coaching is you help the client unearth what's their desire. What do they want to do next? Because it comes through them. And you deeply know that. It's so freeing because you don't even need to have opinions about somebody else because they're pointless. And so when you know that that's coming through you, you can learn to increase your trust in that and learn to really know that even if I don't know right now, I'll know when I know because it's going to come through me. And then for me, it always comes back to just be a normal person. When you find yourself like getting all twisted around and not knowing and getting worried, like don't need to engage with all that noise. At some point, just be a normal person. How would you treat someone else if they were saying the same thing?
Yeah,
And challenge
I
yourself
was.
to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say when you said, "How would I treat my husband if he asked for that?" Or when I was in a parenting class, one of the women said, "My son keeps calling me to say he forgot his lunch, and I don't know what to do anymore." So the teacher said, "What would you do if your best friend called you and said I forgot my lunch?" You know, and she's like, well, if I had the time, then I would go and bring her food. But if I was in the middle of a meeting, I wouldn't. It's like, okay, so treat your kid the same way. If you're able to bring, if not, not. But like, don't overthink it just because it's your kid. It's human. And, he forgot his food. And it's okay for him to learn that sometimes you are available and sometimes you're not. And it doesn't mean anything about you as a mother. I love that. And how you said, the example with your husband. He needs a drive or whatever it's called when you ride a bike. He
Bike
needs
ride,
a bike ride. He needs a bike ride.
adventure.
Go and do it. And then allow yourself to be like, oh, I need a bike ride. Or I need to walk in nature. Or I need, I just told my husband yesterday, I'm like, I need a date. I need to go somewhere in nature with you alone, because that fills me up. It makes me happy to be with you. It makes me happy to be in nature. It makes me happy to take a break and just pause everything. It connects me to God when I am in, outdoors land. Like it's so fun. So I need that. And I was able to communicate. Now my husband knows exactly what to do to make me happy when I start to not. Another thing you said about on my conversation with Hannah Mason that was really beautiful is that you are where you are and she is where she is. And it's not a linear journey. And I want to sit there for just a moment because that linear journey that people have in their minds, it's like in business, it's very obvious. It's like, well, she is ahead of me because she makes more money, or she is ahead of
Oh,
me
because
because
we know. Yeah.
exactly, because she cracked whatever, I haven't cracked yet. She has, the messaging figured out, and she has the this and then that, whatever. As it's very easy in the marketing world and the business world to say, like, come, I will show you because I'm ahead of you, or come work with me. So what happens is that it ends up being sort of like, my husband makes fun of like the whole business coaching world of like just one big pyramid scheme, because like, I'll show you how to make your first $1,000 because my coach for 10,000 showed me how to sell those, whatever. And it's like everybody is above the other person and showing them how to get ahead. And so once you're ahead, you can help other people who are below you. That's very linear. But what happened to me when I posted early on in my coaching that, and that I was helping women with their marriage, I posted on Facebook, and this one lady said to me, "Who do you think you are? I could be your mother." And I said, "What does that have to do with the fact that I can help you have a better marriage?" And she says, "I'm older than you." I said, "I have news for you. Even in 10 years, you will be older than me." Right? It's never going to change. I can get older and wiser and more capable of helping you, and you will never give me a chance because you see yourself linearly as more ahead of me. But what happens is when you get out of that linear mentality and you think, I can learn from anyone, I can receive from anyone, I have the capacity to open up and allow the wisdom, the help, the love to come in from anyone. And now suddenly you've opened yourself up to an amazing world
Mm-hmm.
where your biggest teachers are your students,
Oh my goodness.
right? Right? Which is what we learn when we're in this work, where you're able to hire people who are below you, who have a specific, expertise, or you're able to ask for advice from people who are just on the sides of you. And, the people who are ahead of you aren't actually ahead of you. And we could all learn from each other. It opens up the ability to receive in such a different, deep way.
And something occurred to me at some point during this conversation or just before, where when you say the word receiving, I always think of God. Always. It's just, to me, that's just, unanimous, whatever, synonymous. But then we use it with terms of people. And so that's what makes me think that when we are receiving from a person, we're still receiving from God.
Yes.
And that's really encouraging to me. The old classic story of the man who stood on the roof of his building and everything's flooding, and this rescue thing comes by, and that rescue thing, he says, God will help, God will help. And then he drowns. And he says, God, why didn't you help? He's like, you didn't see all those people I sent you?
Right.
And so
Everyone.
in a certain way, there's nothing more egoic than thinking I don't need help,
Mhm.
because you don't realize where it's coming from. It's so much bigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need
And
no help, Rebbetzin Bat-Chen Grossman.
yeah,
I can
let's
make you a
get.
list of all the things you've helped me with in the last few weeks.
That's amazing. I love
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Well, I encourage you and everyone else to schedule a call and talk to me because I love helping people. It's like what I am
No.
here for.
And
Yeah.
you've really helped me. You've really helped me setting up my course that I'm just about to launch, which by the time this goes on your podcast will be somewhere sitting on my course ready to buy.
Awesome. So tell everyone because we're at time and exactly now I was going to ask you. So how can people find you?
So I have an annual program called Present Parenting. But what I do, and it's a 4-month program, but what I do in the interim during my time off is I create mini programs, and I absolutely love them. They are so fun and so invigorating and really life-changing. Like for a short amount of time, you focus on something and things really shift. And many people who have never done anything and who think this is not for me and what's going to be anyway, they join because why not? And it's a good time in their lives, or this speaks to them or that speaks to them. And they are completely blown away with how much a short course can do for them. So this
I
one's
can
called,
say that about the Bedtime Made Easy. I was part of that one.
thank you. And I love it also that you're not like you've got an 18-year-old and you're taking a bedtime course. I love that.
Are you
Um,
kidding? I also have a 1-year-old. Hello. I have like the entire spectrum of
I love
all the children who don't want to go to sleep, not just one.
that. So my current one that I'm working on is called Playful Productivity, and it's all about bringing more play into your productivity. So it's on the one hand becoming more productive, but on the other hand becoming more playful and seeing how that really invigorates your life, invigorates your productivity, and actually unchains you from your to-do list rather than simply focusing on getting everything done.
I
So
love that. I'm in, people. Please put the link below when we finish with this live so that anybody who's watching this video can join. And we're also going to be putting all the links below on the podcast so that if you are interested in any of Chayella's stuff, make sure to check her out. What's your website?
it's chayellerose.com, YELLE, and then you will find all the follow-up links from there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this was fun.
Thank you. Same here.
Thank you for listening and for being with us. To all those who were live, I love this conversation. I thank God for allowing me to receive so many awesome people into my life just through this podcast. And I thank God for the listeners who are here to receive what I have to give. So thank you for being here, and make sure you come back next week for another amazing episode. Thank you, Chayelle, for being here. And don't forget to be connected for real.